Good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Congressman Andy Biggs gives us the latest at 4:30 on the future of Speaker Mike Johnson. A lot of drama today, a lot of developing news on that. Congressman Andy Biggs is up ahead on that subject. John Eastman, former Trump attorney, joins us at 5 o'clock as various banking institutions are now targeting him. He'll discuss that with us. And Joe Simonson joins us at 5:30 from the Washington Free Beacon as we talk about various Biden family members who may or may not have been eaten by cannibals. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Alejandro Mayorkas, DHS Secretary, was able to escape an impeachment trial in the Senate yesterday thanks to corruption by Democrats. And then today appears before the Senate. Among the questions, well, Senator Roger Marshall had one for him. Take a listen to this. About technology and tracking the people who are illegally invading our country.
It's my understanding that we have technology deployed that helps track the number of gotaways that have unlawfully crossed our borders and evaded capture by our border patrols. Is that correct?
We do have technology that is a force multiplier for our personnel.
Okay. Again, under oath today, I'm asking you, has this technology been operational since you took the post?
I would like to get back to you if there's any deficit in its operational capability. Senator, I'd be pleased to get back to you on that.
Has the system ever gone down under your tenure?
I'd be very pleased to provide you with that subsequent to this hearing.
How could you not know that? How could you not know what type of, is it been down once or twice? Has it been down for weeks at a time, months at a time? Any just range or thought that you could give us? Do you keep track of it in any way, shape, or form?
Senator, we deploy so many different technologies across the expanse of our department, which consists of 268,000 people. If a technology goes down for a short period of time, I may not have visibility of that. I'm the secretary of the department.
Do you think it's been down for a significant amount of time or an insignificant amount of time?
Senator, as I've previously said, I would be pleased to provide you with the information you request subsequent to this hearing. I will look into it.
How about that exchange? In fact, I'm sitting here thinking, I think Senator Roger Marshall knows even more than he's letting on. Well, let's ask him. Senator Marshall joins us on the phone right now from the great state of Kansas. Sir, good to have you with us.
Yeah, Vince, it's great to be with you. Once again, the Secretary of DHS has very little to say. He doesn't answer the questions. His knowledge of the big picture, he doesn't know how many people died from fentanyl, doesn't know how many people he's let out on probation. And I just think that if I was in charge of DHS, I'd want to know things like that, just big picture. Yeah. And here's the technology. See, I think they've been underestimating the known gotaways, let alone the unknown gotaways. For your listeners, this is pretty simple. If you've ever had game cameras and they kind of this night vision, they've got these cameras all over the place on the border. I've seen them. It's not 2020 type of technology, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think they just use the manpower to keep track of those, and let alone keep the batteries operating, all those types of things. I think they just underestimated the people that have got into this country illegally.
Senator Marshall, I couldn't help but notice two things. One, you reminded DHS Secretary Mayorkas that he was under oath. And then you asked specifically about how much downtime our border detection technology has been going under. Do you have information to suggest that it has been down?
I do. And I think it's difficult for me to quantify how much it has been down. But we're working hard to get that information. I think we have some pretty motivated Border Patrol officers that are saying we need help. And I have poor people back in Kansas, my law enforcement officers say it's so bad they cannot arrest themselves out of it. So we'll try to get more information.
So Mayorkas, of course, didn't answer your question today. My suspicion is because he didn't want the soundbite of him acknowledging that border technology has been offline.
I think it's that simple. I think whenever there's some information he does not want to get out, he simply says, I don't know. Earlier in the conversation, we asked him what percentage of people they're capturing are they releasing. In a semi-private conversation, there was lots of Border Patrol officers there. He said 85%. So 85% of the people they're capturing and releasing. There's no way they can vet 85% of 10,000 people in one day. And he would not even admit that number today. So he just says, I don't know, if it's some type of public information he doesn't like.
So, of course, you're holding a hearing today with the DHS Secretary, but what you should really be holding, if you were sticking to the Constitution, would be an impeachment trial for him, because he was just impeached by the House. Yesterday, the Senate took up the issue for like an hour or two, and the Democrats dispensed with it. Do you get the sense, is it your view, Senator Marshall, that that was unconstitutional, the Senate rejecting its obligation under the Constitution to hold the trial?
Oh, absolutely, it was unconstitutional. Yesterday, Senate Democrats set fire to the Constitution. That's a simple, and you have some pretty informed listeners in the Beltway here area, but go back to high school government, just balance of powers, checks and balances. One of the checks and balances of Congress on the executive branch is impeachment. First time in history we've ever had an impeachment articles brought to the Senate and we didn't have a trial unless the person had died or resigned, something like that. So this is precedent setting. And in the future, you could expect that we'll never have an impeachment trial of a president when he or she's the same setting party as the Senate, if that makes sense. So absolutely unconstitutional. I don't see how they can argue that it wasn't, but they don't give a damn. What they're saying is we don't care about Lincoln Riley and her family. We don't care about the family of 250,000 Americans that lost their loved ones to fentanyl. A vote to stop the impeachment trial yesterday is a vote to keep the border open.
Let me also bring up someone else here. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is a Democrat from Nevada. One of her employees, one of her senior advisors by the name of Kurt Engelhardt, was just killed recently in a hit-and-run incident by an illegal immigrant in the early morning of April 6th. She's a Democrat. She voted yesterday not to hold Alejandro Mayorkas accountable. I don't know if I've seen such an obvious abdication of your moral obligations as the one on display yesterday by Senator Cortez Masto. What do you make of that?
I'm almost speechless, Vince, I got to admit. And I do feel like I just got kicked in the gut yesterday. One of the worst professional days of my lifetime, and I'm an obstetrician, and there's been some, bad days as a physician as well, but it's really one of the worst professional days of my lifetime.
Senator Marshall, it's a little, sorry, sir, it's a little difficult to hear you. I don't know if it's just by virtue of your connection, but you said yesterday was one of the most difficult days of your life.
Yeah, professionally, one of the most difficult days of my life. I feel like I got kicked in the gut. We came up here to fulfill constitutional duties. We weren't able to do that, set a horrible precedent, really gutted the Senate in so many ways as well. And I was saying I've had some bad days. As an obstetrician, life as a physician, not every day is perfect. But this was one of the worst professional days of my lifetime. It will be a day that will be remembered in American history, a day we turn more power over to the executive branch. And again, this is a deeper conversation for another day, but I more and more power to the executive branch, and yesterday we did even more of it.
Yeah, it's, again, like I said, unfortunately, a little bit of a breakup here, so we'll see if we can't get things reconnected fully. But, sir, one of the things that came up today in the hearing, as Alejandro Mayorkas was asked by one of your colleagues whether or not he had read the articles of impeachment against him, he said no, he hasn't. He didn't even bother to read the articles of impeachment that the United States House had prepared against him. What is the message from that?
Well, he's very confident that they had a plan to table them. I guess he just knew from the very beginning that Chuck Schumer was never going to have this trial. Again, I'm almost speechless what to say to that. I did not know that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Again, this is a person, as far as I'm concerned, doing Joe Biden's bidding, responsible indirectly for the murder, the poisoning of 250,000 Americans from fentanyl poisoning. I just don't know what to say to something like that.
So one of the reasons why we're also unhappy with Alejandro Mayorkas and, of course, Joe Biden is because they keep releasing people into the country who are killing Americans. That's one of the features of this. In addition to all of the other chaos, the fentanyl crisis clearly killing over 100,000 Americans a year, all of these things. And so My question to you, Senator Marshall, from your perch in the United States Senate, do you get the sense that your colleagues are quite as concerned as the rest of us? Because right now we're looking at the United States House is debating whether or not we're going to send more foreign aid off to Ukraine. That's the single biggest priority, it appears, in Congress right now. But our border and what's going on, with Mayorkas and Biden and the betrayal of our country and the invasion that's going on, doesn't feel like it ranks as high. How do you assess it?
Yeah, I always say actions speak louder than words, and I think you've nailed it. Look where the actions are. What is the focus been? Even from my own leadership in my own party, goodness, for over a year has been on Ukraine funding. Ukraine. I will guarantee you that behind closed doors, we've had over the Ukraine funding, multiples more than anything else put together. I don't get it. I'm not proud of that. I think to me it's always about priorities, and that's why I've said all along, no Ukraine funding until we secure our border.
The text of the legislation. Sorry, you just broke up. I thought you had stopped talking. My apologies. But the text of the legislation that was released by the House this week indicated that they're even looking at giving $300 million to Ukraine's border enforcement, literally their border security, which is like, I don't know if it gets more brazen than that. And here we are as Americans going, can you start with us? That's the only thing. And don't give up your leverage. If Biden and company want Ukraine so badly, at the very least, use it to fix our border as leverage.
Yeah, Vince, that's been my intention all along. From day one, as I saw these three pieces of the puzzle coming together, throw in the Israel funding. Taiwan's kind of an afterthought, a little piece of the puzzle. But that's what I've always said, is no further Ukraine funding. We fund the border. And you would think I'm asking for their firstborn. So it's very frustrating that, again, my own leadership in my party is forcing Ukraine funding as the big number one issue.
Okay, well then one last thing on this subject, and thank you for your time as always, Senator Marshall. Help me pull back the curtain on the mechanics for this then. Why is it that Washington is like this? And we explore this on a routine basis. I think I know the answer, but among them is that, what Washington refers to the defense industrial base, which is also referred to as the military industrial complex. I know that defense contractors have set up their operations in every state in our country and practically every congressional district. And as a result, you get members of Congress who are very loyal to their priorities over the other priorities that the rest of us might have. Is it as simple as that? Is it the money?
To me, it's part of living here for 20 or 30 years. This is another reason we need term limits for all practical purposes. They live in a vacuum, in a silo, and we're just inundated. Every one of these briefings we go to, the sky is falling. We need more ships in the South Sea. We need more missiles pointing at somebody else. We need more soldiers here, more jets. If only we had more jets, more submarines. So I think we're just constantly inundated by that. And finally, people just start believing it rather than, gosh, I've only been here, 6 years now, which seems like an eternity.
Right.
I go to the South Sea, and we have 130,000 troops there. 15 different bases. And I think we got plenty here. It is, but it certainly is cultural that there's just never enough weapons up here. And we don't prioritize, again, our own southern border or balancing the budget, which is the bigger long-term threat than China is.
Yeah, and I get the sense, I'll be talking about this coming up, but the way Speaker Johnson has evolved over time, it seems to me that every time he goes behind closed doors with the intel community, they scare the hell out of him about what he's going to allow happen to this country if they don't get more power, and he keeps giving them power. That seems to be the summary, at least from my perspective. Senator Marshall from Kansas, you're a busy man. Thank you very much for taking some time out for us, sir. Senator Marshall, thanks again for him stopping by here. I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if he shared this anywhere else until today, that he does have information that our border technology, the cameras and sensors that are supposed to be on the border in lieu of a wall, apparently to some extent has been offline, and Mayorkas refused to answer today to what extent. Senator Marshall asking an informed question on the subject. It wasn't a shot in the dark. Maybe we'll get some more answers on that soon, but that seems like a big deal. If you noticed, so we can't keep track of the invaders who are pouring into our country, but Congress is, of course, moving to spy on American citizens without warrants. That's 100% operational. That's a perfectly online. Again, it's a question of their priorities. And boy, are they really letting on what they are. Let's see here. I've got Justin, Wilmington, North Carolina, line 4. Justin, good afternoon. Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. I was just sitting here thinking about everything, and it's really upsetting. Every Democrat in the Senate who voted against having a trial for Mayorkas, for impeachment, for high crimes and misdemeanors, all conspire to aid and abet this person who is committing high crimes and misdemeanors, conspiracy, and treason of leading an invasion, a foreign invasion of our country and endangering our citizens. And now every single member of the Democrat Senate is guilty of aiding and abetting a conspiracy of this invasion.
A foreign invasion.
This is not our country anymore.
And Catherine Cortez Masto, Nevada Democrat senator, just had one of her top aides killed by an illegal immigrant just weeks ago, and she voted not to hold Mayorkas accountable. That really tells you everything, Justin.
They're not our representatives. They're not.
Not mine, that's for sure. Justin, thank you. I appreciate the
Thank
call. Let's see. Coming up, Congressman Andy Biggs is just moments away. There is a lot of breaking news right now from the House floor, a fight over the future of Speaker Mike Johnson, a man who came in with a number of promises about being America first, but then he goes behind closed doors. The intel community tells him something else. He pops out and says he's changed his mind. Now a fight over how many members it would take to get rid of the current speaker. All the latest developments ahead. Congressman Andy Biggs joins us just moments away. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 5 o'clock, John Eastman, former Trump attorney, joins us as various banking institutions are now joining the pile-on to go after one of the left's favorite targets. They're debanking him. He'll react to it here on WMAL. That's ahead at 5. And then 5:30, Joe Simonson from the Washington Free Beacon. He's an expert on the Biden family and cannibalism. We'll discuss that with him, and we'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As we speak, the United States House of Representatives locked in a very fierce debate about what bills they're going to pass over the weekend, how much foreign aid they're going to send all across the planet, and whether or not they'll even bother trying to secure our border. At the center of all of this is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. This morning, Donald Trump Jr. posted a supercut of sorts of Mike Johnson making all sorts of promises when he arrived in office as Speaker of the House to see to our border first and foremost. Take a listen.
I'm telling all of you, and we've told the American people, border, border, border. We have to effect real policy change at the border, and that is a necessary condition to anything we do going forward. We have to take care of our border first. That's what the American people demands.
Every state in America is now a border state.
But since then, his tone has changed. Mike Johnson, in the last 24 hours, now saying Ukraine is the most important priority because, well, he's received briefings now.
I'm doing here what I believe to be the right thing. I think providing lethal aid to Ukraine right now is critically important. I really do. I really do believe the intel and the briefings that we've gotten that I believe Xi and Vladimir Putin and Iran really are an axis of evil. I think they're in coordination on this. I think that Vladimir Putin would continue to march through Europe if he were allowed. I think he might go to the Balkans next. I think he might have a showdown with Poland or one of our NATO allies. To put it bluntly, I would rather send bullets to Ukraine than American boys.
Okay, so, and this, by the way, sounds very familiar with something he said in the past week. The reason why he now is in favor of warrantless surveillance of Americans, the intel community, behind closed doors.
When I was a member of Judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI, the terrible abuses over and over and over, the hundreds of thousands of abuses. And then when I became Speaker, I went to the SCIF and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. So I encourage all the members to go to the classified briefing and hear all that and see it so they can evaluate the situation for themselves. And I think some opinions have changed both ways, but that's part of the process. You got to be fully informed.
Man, what happens inside of that SCIF? Joining us now, Congressman Andy Biggs. He's the man who wanted to impose a warrant requirement on that FISA bill. He joins us now. Congressman, good to have you back with us, sir.
Good to be with you, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Quite a bit going on, but the common theme I'm sensing for Speaker Johnson is that every time he goes behind closed doors and gets a briefing from the intel community, he decides to change the position he rode into the speakership on.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm going to expand it in two ways. Number one, why didn't he go to the SCIF before? I mean, I've been to the SCIF many times to get these types of briefings. He should have been there. And then why does and with regard to that, why is he believing the intelligence community now when he has seen evidence of rampant lying and abuse by the intelligence community? And this allows them to continue their power struggle. And then I guess the second thing is, what happened to the border? What happened to the border is the number one issue. And we have this terrible national security threat at the border. So those apparently dissipated, but now we got to jump in and save with even more money Ukraine. And by the way, his aid isn't limited. He talked about lethal aid. His bill doesn't limit it to lethal aid. There's all kinds of government operations cost in there to the tune of, I think it's $9 billion, something like that, for Ukraine's government. I mean, what is that for? Are we paying for their retirement again? Is that what we're doing again?
Well, apparently the text includes $300 million for the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. What is that? Why does the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine get $300 million and our border nothing?
Well, that's because the intelligence community doesn't give a rip about our border. They apparently they're content surveilling Americans, but they care more about Ukraine's border. I mean, let's just face it, this administration still can't even tell you what their mission is.
He said in the audio I just played a moment ago, Speaker Johnson claimed that if Putin gets his way, he'll be marching through Poland. Has any amount of intel ever suggested that would be the case, given that Putin couldn't even take Kiev?
No, and he doesn't even mention if that's the case. Where are the European allies, the NATO allies? Where are they in this? Are they saying, oh my gosh, let's flood Poland, and some of them are moving military to Poland and whatnot? But the point is, that's new position of the speaker. And the last point and it is the first point I should have started with, is does this not demonstrate to the world how deep and powerful the DC cartel, swamp, I don't care what you want to call it, the establishment, whatever you want to call it, is? Because you took a guy who had all these conservative leanings, these conservative viewpoints, and now all of a sudden he's got a 180. He did a complete 180.
And I know people have tried to mount some defenses of him that, well, he's got a thin majority and he has to, get everybody together. We need compromise. Okay, but wait a second. On this FISA extension debate last week, he was the tie-breaking vote to make it so that there would be no warrant requirement for American citizens. It was that close that he became the tie-breaking vote. So in that sense, it wasn't about trying to, navigate and getting Republicans on the same page. He straight up was like, no, we're going to let the abuses continue. Why did he do that?
Well, because he told me. He got scared. He said, I had a briefing. I got scared. And he doesn't want blood on his hands. And they told him that he would have blood on his hands if these guys have to get a warrant to surveil you. And so you can't get any closer than this, Vince. I don't know of too many ties that I've ever seen, but 212 to 212, and he was the tiebreaker. But it wasn't just that vote. You need to understand that for months after he had his epiphany of blood on his hands fear, he actually stacked the deck against everything that I was trying to do. He put together a task force that was stacked against my position. And he set up these classified reading rooms off the floor so members could go see them. And he set up other operations where the intelligence community would come in and talk to members, but they would never let anybody on the other side talk to those members. They gave us a little bitty room one time, but they dismissed for the day, so we had hardly any attendance.
And also, I noticed that he never attempted, and nobody who agrees with him ever attempted to get the American public's buy-in on any of this. They didn't declassify any information. They didn't try and make an aggressive pitch to the rest of us. They just acted like we were sitting outside the debate, because apparently we are.
Well, you are. I mean, in their world, in the establishment's world, you are ruled. You're not governed. You're not we're to be governed by the people, but you're being governed. You're being ruled. But it lets you see how serious the DC cartel is when they want something, and they didn't want to lose any control, any power that they get from the surveillance.
So the result of all of this chaos right now is there's more chaos, at least on the House floor. Today, there was some debate over whether or not there'd be an elevation to the number of members required to impose a motion to vacate on the Speaker of the House. Just within the last hour or so, Speaker Johnson put out an X post indicating that they're going to keep it apparently at the one-member level. Can you give us a sense, Congressman, what is happening right now? What are these debates all about?
Well, so everybody's frustrated in there, and some people are frustrated and they say, well, we don't want the threat that he might be vacated. So they wanted to raise the threshold number of sponsors on a motion to vacate. Others, so you have Massey and MTG, they've already filed a motion to vacate. There are others that have indicated to me that that's where they're going to go. They're going to probably go there. It is really disapproval, disappointment, disapprobation with what the Speaker has done. He is governed out of fear instead of out of leadership, and he can't make the case. He can't adequately make his case on why he's doing the things he's doing. And now today, or this week, we're also looking at a $95 billion aid package to Ukraine, which was supposed to have serious border security reforms. That doesn't have it.
So on that aid package to Ukraine, I know President Trump had indicated that to the extent that he would support any more aid to Ukraine, he said, I would do it in the form of a loan. This package alleges to give a $60 billion loan to Ukraine, but inside the legislative text, it says that the President of the United States, beginning in November of this year, November 2024, that means Joe Biden will still be president if he's alive and in the position, then he gets to forgive the debt at will, according to the legislative text. What kind of loan is that, Congressman? That sounds like a scam.
Well, it's a kind of loan that no loan shark will give you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of loan everybody else would like to have. It's kind of like the way he views student loans, right? I mean, thinks that he can just forgive those willy-nilly.
Yes.
And that's the same here. This money will never come back to the United States of America. It'll never come back to the taxpayer, but you know where it will go? On top of our national debt, which blows up $200 billion a month.
Sure, but that arrangement, that kind of dishonest arrangement, that looks like it's specifically meant to deceive Donald Trump. That, we're giving it to them as a loan, when in fact the bill text says that Joe Biden can just hand wave and it's not a loan anymore.
Well, yeah, it isn't just meant to deceive Donald Trump, President Trump. It's meant to deceive all of America. It's meant to deceive my colleagues. It's meant to. It is cynical. It is a very cynical approach to legislating, and that's. I can't tell you, since I've been in Congress.
Yeah.
I've seen so much of that, but I did not expect to see it from Speaker Johnson.
Speaking of cynical, the plan, as I understand it, is that they're going to hold a vote on all of these various pieces of legislation, and the foreign aid will all be tied together as one bill. In the end, but the border security bill, which is really just going to be symbolic, it's not going anywhere in the United States Senate, will stand alone from the foreign aid. This is all supposed to take place Saturday night? They're going to have votes on Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday afternoon, evening. And here's another thing about it too. So, first of all, that HR 2, that border bill, that is a cover bill. That's just to provide cover. It's not real, okay? It's just a political show. But the other bills, those 4 other bills, you're going to vote on them separately, and then before you transmit them to the Senate, they're going to put them back into one bill. And so what's happened is the Speaker, this is how far he's moved. the speaker used to say, we're going to leverage Ukraine funding in order to get the border secure. And now basically what he's doing, he's saying we're going to leverage Israel aid with to get Ukraine aid.
Yeah.
So he's changed his lever. And the other thing is packed within the Israel aid. As I was listening to Rules Committee today, it's revealed the number's unclear, but it looks like it's about $5 billion is going to go to Gaza for humanitarian aid. Now, even the Biden administration officials say that somewhere between 65 and 80% of all humanitarian aid that goes into Gaza ends up in the hands of Hamas. And don't be surprised if Hamas is able to retool, rearm, and get themselves ready to go after Israel again.
So if that's the
US
case,
dollars.
so if that's the case, the legislation will fund both sides of that conflict, which we've unfortunately become all too accustomed to seeing from American military spending. Finally, on Speaker Johnson's future, I don't know if you've signaled one way or the other yet, sir, if you would support the motion to vacate against him. But if that were to occur, one of the things I hear from conservatives who are concerned about where all of this goes is this belief that there's a chance Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker of the House. Do you think that is a legitimate possibility? And what do you make of the motion to vacate calls against Speaker Johnson now?
Well, I think what I personally will do is I haven't made a decision. It's a hypothetical, so I kind of hold off and let's wait and see. But the thing about it that is very different than it was 6-7 months ago is that 9 members of Congress are on their way out or have left already. So the majority is way down. It's one effective majority of 1. And so it does become very dangerous because I would suspect that there are Republicans who would vote for Hakeem over
a conservative,
Mike Johnson. Yeah, over a conservative.
Okay. All right. Well, at this rate, we'd be better without a speaker, and just the House just goes to a standstill until I saw Sean Davis over the Federalist saying this today. Just no speaker whatsoever. Just lock up the House. No more congressional action at all because things just don't go our direction ever, do they, Congressman Biggs?
They don't. I mean, there's a great piece in Conservative HQ earlier this week talking about people who get into leadership. They're private conservatives, and then they get into leadership, and they never use conservative credentials, and that's the reality of it, and that's what we're seeing. And I also would say I'm a big believer in the Peter Principle, and I think we've seen that in Speaker Johnson. He is the epitome of the Peter Principle.
Congressman Andy Biggs, as always, thank you for your time, sir, and your insight into what's going on in Congress today. Really appreciate that. All right, Sam, Alexandria, line 1. Sam, you're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Hi, good afternoon, Vince. Man, what a beautiful day it is.
Yes, indeed.
I've been thinking about this a little bit since all this stuff has, started to dust up. And what came to mind, and it seems almost too simplistic, but, I've never said that I'm much more than a simplistic kind of guy, is that perhaps President Trump should look outside of D.C. because I believe the Speaker of the House does not have to be a representative.
You're right.
So look out at former governors, former people that have respect and standing, and bring in the opposition leaders from within the party and say, look, I'm just throwing the name that everybody knows. I'm thinking about Newt because Newt can make it happen.
Something has to change. I kind of like this idea. Maybe somebody who's independently wealthy, who is otherwise uncorruptible, who can come in and just start strangling people, whipping votes, telling voters what they're up to, just using the bully pulpit in there just to bring the conference together. Something needs to change, Sam. I think that's the thing you and I agree on. All right, hold on. John Eastman's going to join us, former Trump attorney, just moments from now. A conversation you don't want to miss. The left wants to destroy him. His bank accounts are being closed, and now he's speaking out. Stay here.